Finding love in the modern age is difficult to say the least. The way we find relationships, communicate with each other, and build connections has not only changed drastically, but it's also gotten much more challenging in some regards. If you've chosen to go your own way and give up on dating completely and you are satisfied with that life, then I don't blame you, but I doubt it's what the majority of you want. And in an online world full of pickup artists telling you how to get laid and looks max, information on how to build a serious lasting relationship is lacking. So today I'm giving you the full guide on how to find someone you can connect with, increase attraction, and build a serious relationship that lasts using my almost 10 years of relationship experience. Now, if you haven't seen the first part of this two-part series, which explains how to give off the sort of charisma that makes women want to be in a relationship with you, and also ensures you don't end up letting a relationship dictate your self-worth, I highly suggest watching that before you get into this video. The link is in the description to that, and also grab a notepad, grab a pen, because you're gonna wanna write down the things that I say in this video if you actually want to retain the information. So listen up, pay attention, and let's get started. All right, so first let's talk about where to find a girlfriend. The three most common ways to meet a potential partner is through a dating app, a real-life warm approach, or real-life cold approach. With dating apps, the way that you present yourself along with the likelihood of you actually meeting up with that woman is much different from the real-life approaches, so let's just go over that first. Now, the dating app that I would recommend above all others if you're looking for a serious relationship is Hinge. I'm not entirely sure what it is about this app. Maybe it's the fact that you can have prompts to go with your profile, or it's the type of people the app attracts, but this is the app I've had the most success with in terms of actually meeting with good women. Now, if you choose to go the route of dating apps, you have to play the game of presentation. Unlike real life, where women are able to pick up on your energy, charisma, and body language, the only thing you can really pick up on dating apps is what this person is like based on their appearance. And as much as I don't like to think of every single aspect of the human existence as a competition, dating and dating apps in particular are a competition, and you must stand out above others. Now, I've seen a lot of y'all dudes' profiles, and I am just gonna say that a lot of you are selling yourself short, and you could be doing way better with your profile. You should get a good variety of pictures taken, and ideally a couple that are from a professional. And what you wanna strive for is a profile with no selfies, some solo pictures of you both dressed casually and dressed nicely, some that have you doing various activities to show you actually leave your house, and a couple pictures with friends as well to show some social confirmation. The picture that got me the most likes on Hinge personally is this one, and it's probably because it looks pretty professional, I'm dressed well, it's a nice like side profile shot, and I have my camera in my hand, which shows the hobby that I am passionate about. And yes, I know all this sucks, and the fact that you have to resort to this just to get a girl to superficially like your profile is not optimal, but you have to do this first on dating apps. You have to get past the superficialities if you want to get to the deep stuff that comes with meeting a woman in real life. It's also important to note that this option is far more difficult for men with average or below average looks. Dating apps are disproportionately favored towards women because 80% of the people on these apps are men, and they can choose from the cream of the crop even if the woman is unattractive themselves. Now, a lot of you guys are much more attractive than you currently think because you've been brainwashed by social media to think that you should look like the most attractive person imaginable, which is what is highlighted on social media. So I think that for a lot of you guys, it still is worth trying out. But it's important that you're liking people on these apps that are within or above your standards, or they just look like they could be a good person past their looks, unlike a lot of women who are just searching for the cream of the crop guys on dating apps. Now, if you truly believe this method isn't for you, and after optimizing your profile, you're still getting 0 matches, then you'll probably have an easier time doing the 2 real-life methods. So now let's go over the 2 more organic methods to finding a potential partner now: warm approaching and cold approaching. A warm approach is when you already have some sort of ties with the woman you are meeting. This means that you could have a mutual friend introduce you guys, or maybe you guys are already friends or used to be friends. This leads to more success than cold approaching because the woman has already gotten some sort of confirmation or trust that you're not just some random creepy ass dude. If you have a friend or associate that is at least somewhat close to a woman you are interested in, ask them if they can introduce you to each other. And then you can go from there to see if you guys are actually compatible. Now, a cold approach is when you introduce yourself to a woman who you don't know or have any sort of connections with, and you just start talking to them. This is much more difficult mentally because you have to face the fear of being rejected rejected by a woman and potentially in front of your friends, and she also doesn't know if she can trust you or not. It's like a door-to-door salesman randomly knocking on your door and asking you if you want to buy into their product. Now, if you are choosing to go the route of cold approaching, which I must admit becomes really fun when you get the hang of it and you improve your confidence with it, you are probably going to wonder, where should you meet a woman? And the answer is pretty subjective based on your interests and what you're looking for. For instance, if you don't go out to clubs or drink and party, then trying to go to clubs just to meet someone to form a relationship with is probably a bad idea, because that woman most likely does that on a frequent basis. And if you're someone who doesn't like doing those things, then that's going to cause relationship problems down the line because your actions and interests won't be aligned. Think about what you like to do and where you spend a lot of your time. If you're really into cooking and making your own food, then maybe a place like the grocery store is your best bet. You could even sign up for a cooking class too. If you read a lot and want someone who is into reading, try cold approaching at the bookstore. If you're really into improving yourself and lifting weights, then the gym is probably your best bet. And if you have some other type of interest I didn't list, try finding an event in your area that is related to that interest just by looking up the name of the interest followed by event near me on Google. Alternatively, you can use the app called Meetup. Meetup is a really great app for finding people with similar interests and making friends, but the only problem with that app is people don't go on there with the intention of finding someone to be in a relationship with. But with that being said, it could still happen. This also increases the likelihood of a woman wanting to go on a date with you because right off the bat, you guys have a shared interest, and it'll also decrease the awkwardness of trying to figure out something to say. Plus, she'll already be at least somewhat of the type of girl you're looking for. And that leads me to the next important question, which is, what should you look for in a girl? Well, that also depends on a lot of what we've been talking about here, like your interests, passions, and your reasons behind getting into a relationship in the first place. Now, I personally hate the idea of narrowing down whether you should pursue a woman or not based on red flags, because it feels like a very reductive, superficial approach to dating. Like saying, if she goes to bars once a week, that's a red flag, or if she has over 1,000 followers on Instagram, that's a red flag, is dumb, because that's just a person being a person, and they more so just don't fit your preferences. In fact, one of the only red flags I think you should look out for is someone who is constantly using red flags to describe things. So instead, let me give you the most general overview of what most guys should look for in a woman. In general, you should be looking for someone that is supportive, knows how to communicate what they want and need well, is willing to listen and be empathetic towards your wants and needs, doesn't get easily offended by you expressing what you're looking for out of a relationship, doesn't gaslight you or manipulate you, is kind to others and isn't constantly talking shit about other people, and likes at least some of the same stuff as you. And then you need to figure out what you want, not what other people are telling you you should look for online. To do so, you can just do this simple exercise. Grab a notepad and a pen, which you probably already do if you're watching this video, and ask yourself, what is it that I want from someone in a relationship? Write them down and categorize them as either non-negotiables or nice-to-haves. The nice-to-haves are kind of explained in the name. They're things that would be nice to have but aren't absolutely necessary in order for you to want to be in a relationship with a person. And the non-negotiables are the personality traits or interests or something of the like that this person must have in order for you to even consider being in a relationship with them. These are very important to establish before you even go on the first date, because for one, if you go on a date with a woman and she breaks one of your non-negotiables, then you know right off the bat that this isn't someone you would be compatible with. But two, it also establishes boundaries that you have and lines that they must not cross so you won't get walked all over in the relationship. And I just want to call out a lot of y'all here and say that a lot of you do not have enough self-respect to establish healthy boundaries, or you're on the opposite side of the spectrum and your standards are far too high and you have way too many non-negotiables. And that goes for both guys and girls. So a good rule of thumb, I would say, is to always have your nice-to-haves list be more than your non-negotiables list, because if you're really limiting yourself that much in your dating experience, you're just shooting yourself in the foot and you're never going to find someone. Because from what I've learned, he or she doesn't really have to hit all of those points in order for you guys to have an incredible relationship. And in fact, it's often the people that don't hit all of your points that you have the strongest connection with, because you both grow out of your own interests and bubbles and find new ways of living. Alright, so now you know what to look for in a woman and the potential routes you can take to find a partner. But How do you communicate with them? Well, this is where we're going to start to apply some of those traits we learned in the last video. Now, the way you communicate in person versus over text, as well as the way you communicate on the first few dates versus when you guys really get to know each other, are all going to be different. But let's just start off with communicating over text or on a dating app. When it comes to your first opening pickup line on a dating app, it's pretty important because it determines whether this person is even going to talk to you or not. Again, this is going to require some superficiality at the start just to spark up some sort of conversation, and yeah, I know that sucks, but it is required at the start. There are two methods that I use personally. The first is commenting about something related to one of their pictures, whether that's a question or some type of pickup line, and the second is just trying to invoke some sort of curiosity out of them using this line that I used to use all the time. So let me give you an example of the first one. Let's say you see the woman has a picture with her figure skating. Your response to that in the form of a like on Hinge could be something like, if I was your partner, I could never do the throws because I'd never be able to let you go. Yeah, it's corny, I know, but it shows you're clever and you're trying to increase some attraction. Or if you want to be a little more forward, you could say something like, you'll be falling on something harder than ice tonight. Now that second one is kind of risky and insinuates that you're just trying to sleep with a woman, but to be honest, every girl likes different first pickup lines, so don't get discouraged and keep experimenting. My girlfriend and I actually met on Hinge, and the prompt that I responded to was about her job in data science. And literally all I said to respond to that prompt was, I have no idea what this means, but I'm trying to learn more. Or something like that, and it actually worked. When I asked her later down the line why that had worked, she said it was mostly because I showed genuine interest in her job, and showing genuine interest in the other person's life is something we're gonna go into detail soon. Now, if you are completely stumped on what to say, then you can use the second option, which is the opening line that I used to use all the time. And it went something like, there's something I can't fully figure out with you. In some of your pictures, you look calm and innocent, but then I look at others and it seems like you got a more devious side to you. I swear I have never used a line on any dating app that has had a higher success rate than this. They almost always respond with, yeah, well, I'm a little bit of both, or oh my God, how did you know? Or, well, I guess you're gonna have to find out for yourself. This usually makes them want to know more about why you feel that way, and that, in turn, creates a response. Now let's just talk about texting in general at the start, whether that is after the first line on a dating app or over actual text. The main theme of your texting should be one of genuine interest in the other person while applying pressure and not making it feel like an interview. That means that the main focus should be on asking questions while adding in your own input too. If you were just trying to sleep with someone, it would be more focused on flirting over text, but you want to see if this person could actually potentially be a partner for long term. And the way you do that is by taking your foot off the flirting gas pedal just a bit, but not all the way. To start, ask some simple questions that you don't yet know about her. Do you enjoy your job? And if you do or don't, why? What's been the main goal you've been focusing on this year? Or something about where she's from are good places to start and then build off of. You should be genuinely interested in learning more about her and what she likes by asking open-ended questions. That is, questions that require more than a yes or no answer. And after she responds, you can add in some of your own input followed by another question. For example, if she says her biggest goal this year is trying to get a higher paying job in her field, you can say something like, that's mine too actually. I've been padding my resume with new stuff by doing some side work and putting it on my portfolio. Is this career path the one you think you'll be on for a long time? Again, it's adding in your own input and then asking another question. She doesn't want to feel like she's part of an interview where she's just being asked a million questions and she's not even getting to know you. But you can't just do this. There has to be a little bit of tension and flirting going on too. She doesn't want to feel like she's just talking to a straight up friend, but rather a potential partner. So amongst the conversation, every once in a while, you want to say something flirty that isn't too much. Like you don't want to say, I can't wait to get you in no clothes and be all up on you if you guys haven't even met yet, but rather maybe something like, damn, a hard worker on the job and clearly putting in that work on your body too. Just my type. Remember, there needs to be at least a bit of pressure applied over text as you guys are conversing. Now, as far as how often you should text her, well, that really depends on the girl. But like I said in the last video, you should have some sort of ambition, mission, or goal that makes you unavailable to text 24/7. Don't be the guy that waits 4 hours to text her just because he doesn't want to look needy and he isn't actually doing anything with that time. Be the guy who actually can't text that often because he has goals to pursue. And when you are that guy, that's really going to translate into how you carry yourself on the first date and whether you are desperate or not. But before we get into the first date, let's really quickly go over how you should approach the cold approach in real life. The simplest way is just to be direct and honest with your intentions and ask for their number. Now, the biggest killer as to whether you're actually going to end up doing this or not is your thoughts. Trust me, I've been there many times where you see a woman you want to talk to and then your brain just starts thinking of every possibility that could go wrong. But what has worked for me in past situations to overcome this is the 5-second rule. I remember I was at a concert one time and there was a girl there who I knew and she hung out with our friends sometimes, and I wanted to make a move on her and express my interest to her. When I finally got the opportunity to go up to her, I felt my body start to freeze up a bit and my heart race, and I started to think about the worst possible scenarios, but I quickly calmed myself and centered myself, and I told myself this is simply your body's response to doing something that excites you and will help you further progress in life, no matter if you get rejected or not. No matter what happens, you have conquered and faced your fear head on, and that is a win. And even if you do get rejected, it just means that you have something new to learn, or that person was not the right person for you in the first place. And then I counted down in my head from 5 seconds. I just went 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and I went in and I did it without thinking. I walked up to her and I just told her, listen, I think you're cute, I'm interested in you, and I'm trying to take you out. And she said some thank yous and giggled a little bit, and I was like, so can I have your number? And then she gave it to me, and that was that. I was playing it out to be this incredibly big situation when in reality I was just afraid of expressing my true feelings and intentions. Just be direct, honest, and compliment them and ask them for their number, and you can go from there. Very simple. Alright, so let's talk about the first date. After all the flirting and conversations over text and dating apps, this is where the real potential starts to grow. As far as the first date goes, you need to be the one that sets up the date and time to do the thing. That shows that you are decisive and direct, which are two traits that most women are very attracted to. Having her pick or saying, it doesn't matter to me, shows that you do not have the assertiveness and leadership that she is looking for. The best first date options are the ones that are simple, cheap, and that you guys can easily talk to each other on. Most of my first dates have either involved a coffee shop or a not too fancy restaurant. Just make sure it is in public and around a decent amount of people, because if you try to ask her to come over your house or go on a hike on the very first date, which I've done in the past, she'll most likely decline or ghost you because she doesn't fully trust you yet. You should initiate the first date within the first 1 or 2 days of texting and just be like, alright, I'm thinking we go to this place on this date at this time. Are you free then? And if she says she's not, then suggest another date and time. But if she is constantly saying she's always busy, or she cancels the date at the last minute and makes no effort to reschedule it, it's most likely that she is not interested in you and it's a wrap. I know that sucks, but you shouldn't have to try and push really hard to make a first date happen. That's a clear sign that she's not super into the idea of meeting you. Okay, you've gotten the date, the time, you know where you guys are going, it's confirmed, you're meeting there. Now that you're on the first date, what the hell do you do? Well, I feel like for this part, it's a good idea for me to give you the full rundown of my successful first date with my current girlfriend. We met up outside the place I had planned for us to meet and eat at, and I just started with a simple hug and a nice to meet you. Although she claims that when we both went in for the hug, I looked like I was resisting and only doing like a side arm hug. So don't be like me, just go in for the confident, pure hug at the start and a nice to meet you. The place we had initially intended to go to had a long line, so we ended up walking around this little shopping district area we were at to find another place to eat. While we were trying to find another place, I was asking her if she had been here before and what was like the best restaurant to go around here. I remember she said she's been to a couple places, but she didn't really know where to go, and I said something along the lines of, come on, you've been here before, you should know where to go. I was just messing with her in a very non-serious, nonchalant way, which showed that I didn't take myself too seriously, and I knew how to joke around, and I knew how to have fun, which women like. We ended up finding some place that served up some healthy food bowls and wraps, and we both ordered, and I paid for her meal. Listen, I don't care what the internet is telling you about this stupid 50-50 argument, who pays on the first date. You should absolutely 100% be the person to pay on the first date, even if the date doesn't go well. Some girls genuinely don't care and they're willing to split the bill, but if you do, it just shows you know how to take charge and you are taking this date seriously and you're willing to put in effort. And that's why I say go to a cheaper place first if you're not incredibly wealthy. So we sat down and started getting into some basic stuff. I asked her about her job as a data scientist, and I brought up how I knew some programming as well because I minored in computer science. I continued to maintain eye contact and have an open body posture and be genuinely interested in what she had to say by asking questions and adding in my own input. We went back and forth like this until she eventually told me that she had checked out my videos prior to the date. And I was like, well, if you already checked out your videos and you're here, it must have mean that you liked them. And she laughed and she brought up the fact that I had a Berserk wallpaper in the background of all my videos and that was her favorite anime and manga. Upon learning this, my eyes lit up and I took off my jacket to reveal my Berserk tattoo on my forearm. At this point, I think she put her hand on my arm to get a better look at the tattoo, and so the first physical touch was initiated. And it's important that on the first date, you have at least some sort of that. After that, I felt like we were vibing really well and we started to get even more comfortable. And I remember when our food came out and I took a bite of my wrap, I was like, this is pretty damn mid, and I feel like I could be doing better than what this restaurant is putting out. That showed that I had confidence in my abilities, and it also showed I had the ability to cook, which, by the way, is an amazing skill to develop if you want to be more attractive. And that started up even more conversation, which eventually led to me saying something like, well, maybe if you're lucky enough, I'll make something for you soon. Which was again me being flirty, confident, and adding some tension. When we left the restaurant, we continued walking around the shopping district, and I already felt so comfortable with her, and I felt like she was really comfortable with me, and I just had the thought of like, I really want to kiss this girl. So we were at a corner and there wasn't really any people around, and I just stopped walking for a second. She kept walking until she realized that I had stopped, and she said, wait, why did you stop? And I waved my hand to her like this and I was like, come here for a second. And when she got close enough to me and stopped walking, I started slowly leaning in to kiss her. I did this slowly to give her enough time to react, which you should be doing to see if it's like appropriate and if she wants to, and she nervously said, wait, what are you doing? And I was like, what do you mean I'm trying to kiss you? And she was like, oh, okay. And then she started leaning in to give me confirmation, and yeah, that was our first kiss. After that point, physical touch felt much more natural, and we walked around while holding hands for a while. And this is when I felt comfortable asking her what she was doing on Hinge and what she was looking for. I wanted to make sure we were both on the same page before I even considered having a second date, because if I didn't, then we were just wasting each other's time. And we both agreed that we were both kind of just trying to see what was out there, and if something more serious ended up happening because of that, then it would happen. We both didn't want the date to end, so we just drove to a park, and on the way there, I put my hand on her leg. I still wasn't 100% sure if she was comfortable with that much touch on the first date, so I asked her after I put my hand on her, like, yo, is this okay? Are you comfortable with this? And she said, yeah. She revealed at a later date that she actually liked the fact that I asked her on the first date if touching her leg was appropriate, because it showed that I respected her. So sometimes initiating the physical touch and asking if it's okay is a good thing. We sat in my car in the parking lot talking for another hour or so about a bunch of different things while kissing a little more until I eventually drove her home. And before she stepped out of the car, she said she was interested in meeting up again, and I agreed, and I told her to text me when she got into her apartment safely, which you should do. It was, at least for me, the pretty much ideal first date. I was direct and assertive, I felt confident the whole time, we had good conversation, I joked around with her and didn't take myself seriously, I initiated some sort of physical touch while not going too far, I did not ask her to come back to my place so we could sleep with each other, and I drove her back home. It might take you a long time and a lot of dates to have that first ideal date that I had, but I feel like when you just know the vibes are right, the conversation's going well, you just really click with the person, you just know. And it'll be easier to get to that point and figure that out once you end up gaining more experience over time. After a successful first date, you can continue texting and getting to know each other, and then you can set up another date within the next 1 to 2 weeks. And at this point, it would be appropriate to potentially invite them over to your own place for the date, although you might want to hold off until the 3rd or 4th date. I ended up having my girlfriend over on our 2nd date, but that was because I ended up cooking dinner for her, and my intention with that wasn't because we were gonna sleep with each other. Then, once you get to the 2nd, 3rd, or 4th dates, this is when you should start putting in more effort and showing her that you're serious about this and that you actually care about her. On the 3rd date with my girlfriend, we actually ended up going hiking, and before that day, I spent an hour or two drawing this picture of Guts from Berserk to show that she was special to me. And it also showed that I was willing to put effort into this and that I stood out above other guys who were simply just asking her to come to their apartment and sleep with her on the 3rd date. And if there's one thing that I want to keep repeating, it's that the effort throughout the relationship must must never die if you want to build a lasting relationship. Other gifts that would be good are flowers and chocolates, or maybe a card if she's celebrating something soon. Just something more than words after the first date shows that you really care. Now, when you decide it's the right time to ask them to be your girlfriend will vary depending on how things have been going and how right everything feels. But for most people, I feel like you'll know within a month or within like 5 to 10 times of you guys hanging out. And by that time, you should have already asked her what she's looking for, so you're not just wasting your time and she's not actually taking this seriously. I think it was about a month after I met my girlfriend that I decided to ask her to be my girlfriend, and she said yes. And since then, it has been about 9 months of almost smooth sailing. Almost. So lastly, I want to go over the most important elements to making a relationship actually last instead of one that ends after the first argument. The 2 most important things that will make a relationship last that need to constantly be kept up are effort and communication. The majority of the reason as to why relationships end up falling apart is because either one or both partners in the relationship stop putting in the same effort that they did when the relationship first started, or one or both partners aren't willing to communicate what they want and need and listen to the other person's wants and needs and work to fulfill them. Once you get past the honeymoon stage, it is crucial that you continue doing the little things for your partner, like surprising them with gifts or taking them out somewhere or expressing to them just how much you care about them in some way. You might naturally get a little complacent over time because you're no longer trying to make this relationship happen, but that cannot be an excuse for you to stop showing up and putting in effort. You have to remember that the woman that fell for you fell for the man that you were at the start of the relationship. And although it's natural to evolve and grow over time in a relationship, the amount of effort that you put in has to be constant, even if the type of effort evolves too. For example, what used to be taking her out to a date night every weekend might be you setting up a movie night at your place with food already made for her, and that is what I mean by the effort evolving. Just make sure you are doing things that consistently make her feel loved. But in order to even know what she really loves about what you do, this is where you need to start communicating with each other and getting vulnerable. Once you establish a decent connection, if you want to make that bond and connection even stronger, you both need to start communicating what you want and need from each other, and also what you like most about what that other person does. I can't imagine how many relationships have ended because one person asks, "What's wrong?" and the other person responds, "Nothing," even though there very clearly is a problem, and that problem continues to grow and grow when 1 or 2 conversations could have resolved everything. Unfortunately, you won't really know if your partner is willing to communicate and work through those problems until those problems actually arise, but let it be known to them and say to them, "I'm willing to meet your needs and wants and listen to what is potentially a problem with our relationship and work towards resolving it." You need to make that apparent to them. Disagreements and misunderstandings are inevitable, but here's an example of what a healthy one would look like that would be handled maturely and could be eventually resolved. Let's say you aren't feeling as loved as you'd like to be by your partner recently. You're someone who likes physical touch, and your partner has not met your need for physical touch and closeness in the relationship. You communicate to them, "Hey, I want to talk to you about something in person I've been feeling lately the next time we hang out. Is that cool?" And I say this because it's best to do these types of conversations in person, and if that's not doable, then FaceTime is also okay. Just try and avoid working through something this important through text because that lacks the facial gestures and voice intonations that really allow you to see what the other person is trying to convey and for them to see what you're trying to convey. And then you tell them directly and honestly what has been bothering you. So in this case, you would say something like, "I haven't been feeling as loved as I'd like to with you. I feel like we haven't had as much physical touch that I need to feel loved." A response from an emotionally mature and intelligent partner would be something like, "I understand, and I will do my best to meet these needs in the future. I apologize if I made you feel less loved." And an unhealthy response would be in the form of gaslighting, where your partner says you are overreacting or being too much. Nobody deserves to feel like they're too much in a relationship. And if you're constantly communicating your needs and wants to your partner and they are consistently having this negative reaction or they're not willing to work through these things, then that is a serious problem. And as awful as it may be, even if you have developed some sort of connection with this person already, this might not be the person that is mature enough to build a relationship that lasts with you. Along with that, on the opposite end of the spectrum, when your partner does something that really makes you feel loved, tell them. This will encourage them to do it more and will give them more of an indication as to what you like and dislike. For example, something that my girlfriend did and still does till this day was ask me genuinely how I'm doing and what I'm doing for work, and she was super interested and supportive of what I was doing, and I told her, you know, I really appreciate you always checking in on how I am doing and being so supportive of me. That means a lot. Now, as a guy, you're probably wondering when the area of being vulnerable comes into play. Well, I don't know how vulnerable you should be on the first couple dates, but if you want to eventually get to the point where you develop a deep connection with this person, you have to be willing to open up to them and express your feelings and trust them. It's also a good indication as to whether this person is going to be a good long-term partner for you if they are mature enough to not see your vulnerability as a weakness. But let me give you an example of what I mean by being vulnerable so you can understand this. Maybe you guys have been on a couple dates now and the conversation's going really well and you guys are getting really physically close to each other on a date. And somehow that leads to talking about each other's past. The whole situation makes you feel comfortable enough to the point where you start to talk about how you felt neglected emotionally by your parents and didn't ever feel really supported as a kid, which led you to eventually having difficulty making friends as a teenager. Someone who is emotionally mature and genuinely likes you would be super happy to hear you share those things with them because it shows them that you trust them enough to say something like that. And when you continuously improve the trust between you and your partner, and you are vulnerable and you open yourself up more and more to this person, your relationship will prosper ever more too. My girlfriend and I actually ended up getting vulnerable with each other really early, like by the third date. And I can tell you guys that the right woman will make you feel safe and secure with your vulnerabilities, and it will only bring you closer. But that is with the right woman. Again, if the person you are dating is not willing to do this and they're not willing to listen or at least get to that point where you guys are doing that, then no matter how much you like them, you should not put up with them. It is definitely tough to find the people who are actually willing to push past the superficiality and get vulnerable in this day and age, but I promise you, they are out there. If you can keep up the effort and communication and not hide your true wants, needs, and feelings, then you will find yourself in a mutually beneficial relationship that lasts a very long time. But I know from personal experience, it takes a very long time to get to that point where you feel confident enough to get vulnerable and also have the confidence and assertiveness to be the guy that women want, not only just for women, but for yourself, because you should want that for yourself. And if you are interested in improving yourself and mastering yourself, you should check out my Ultimate Self-Mastery course. The Ultimate Self-Mastery course is a holistic approach to strengthening your self-awareness, accepting your flaws, building better habits, and creating a fulfilling life. It features 14 videos, several hours of content, and 15 plus worksheets so you can apply what you learned from each video directly and actually retain that information. And not only that, but we also have our exclusive self-mastery community. We are in there every single day, inspiring each other, lifting each other up, giving more advice on the course and life in general. And we are also meeting in group calls every other week that are video calls. And I can say that this community has been incredible, not just for the members in there because of all the transformations that I'm seeing from the course, but also for me and just how motivating all the guys are in there and seeing the incredible things that people are accomplishing. So if you are looking for that community, if you are looking for that type of course and you want to better yourself in all areas of your life, you can check it out. It's the first link in the description and you can watch that intro video to see if it's right for you. But seriously, if you are serious about improving yourself, about joining a community of like-minded individuals all trying to reach self-mastery, join the course. You won't regret it. It's easily the most impactful thing that I've ever created. Thank you to all my patrons on Patreon. If you don't know what this is, it's a platform separate from YouTube where I put out exclusive content, and you can also talk to me one-on-one over the phone on there. If you want to check that out, the link is in the description as well. And now if you are trying to improve your social skills and you already checked out the first part of this video series, just check out the whole playlist I've made on building relationships with others. I have a ton of good videos in there if you're trying to improve that aspect. And that is it. Yeah, that's it. Thanks for watching.